Welcome to day 2, starting out from downtown Lloydminster, Alberta. Or maybe Sask. I don't know what side we're on. I think we're in Alberta. Anyway, it's morning. That's what matters. Mabel, you're ready for another day on the road? Not convinced? So sometimes it's not even about what's there, it's finding out what is there. And in this case, this is actually a section of road I saw on Google Maps that looked very interesting just because of the way the road twisted and turned. And so I planned the route to actually make sure we hit this little area. We're just south of an Alberta town called McLaughlin, and we didn't really stop in there because they were doing road construction, and it looked like every road in town, all 2 of them, were all covered in fresh oil, and we decided we didn't want any part of that. But because we routed there, it got us to this section of road, and we got to check out this great bridge. I forgot to put my seatbelt back on. Very nice. I love old bridges like that. Good day, mate. I did check on the pillars in the side of the bridge to try and see if there was any maker's marks, if it is a Dominion Bridge Company of Canada bridge officially. No plaques, no markings, not sure who made the bridge. It's probably Dominion Bridge. They seem to make most of them of that style in these parts, but can't prove it. Guess what? It's time to get back on the road. Okay, unlike the last stop at the bridge, I'll remember to turn the microphone on this time so it's more than just wind noise. Anyway, we were heading south, and all of a sudden we had a, oh my God, stop the car and back up kind of moment, and just off on the horizon on top of a hill, we found this. Yes, that's a little cemetery, and of course, with cemeteries come churches. According to the plaque, this is the Battle River Lutheran Church and Cemetery, established in 1909. Okay, well, you know the rules. We have to check. There was a padlock on the door at one time. Let's see if we have any success. Nope, not this time. This one is locked. Yeah, there's some classic curtains in that window. Foundation's kind of cracked. But not bad shape considering its age. I don't know if it dates right to the time that the cemetery was established or was built a bit after. The Skyline Church that we checked out earlier yesterday was built in the early 30s. So this seems to be of that same era. So it might not be the original church here. So, yeah, so this back part here looks like it was an addition. And you can see there used to be a chimney that ran up this corner here. So there's a distinct possibility this first part of the church is the original. It has that kind of classic one-room schoolhouse slash church look, and then it had additions put on it. A couple potentially additions. Perhaps even the bell tower was a later addition. Okay, well that was a fun little find. Wasn't even on the radar at all. It was purely a, hey, there's a tall white thing sticking up through some trees over on the horizon. Couldn't get inside. It's not in as good a shape as the Skyline Church, but a great find nonetheless. And that didn't take very long from the last stop. Okay, there are certain places that have been on my want to visit list for a long time, and this is one of them, and I am really excited that we finally made it here to check it out in person. Let's go. This is the grain elevator at Butte. I'm going to call it Butte because it sounds better. Butte, Alberta. And folks, this one is a classic in every sense of the word. Yeah, this is one that I figured would be on my best elevators in Alberta list, but having never been here in person to see it, it never felt quite right to have it on that list. But now I can, and yes, it lived up to its reputation. You know we got to put DroneOCan up in the air and take a look and check this beauty out up above. Okay, this is probably our furthest stop along the trip. We are out in the middle of Saskatchewan. Well, not really the middle of Saskatchewan. We're in the middle of nowhere in Saskatchewan. I am not going to share the name of the town that we are in, and there's a specific reason for that. I was given this location by a good friend of the channel, Johnny Bachewski. Johnny has been a ghost towner longer than almost anyone I know. And he was actually the very first ghost towner I ever got in contact with almost 25 years ago. So anyhow, Johnny did a road trip out this direction not that long ago, and that's kind of what really got me motivated to come back out this direction. And so I had told him he had inspired this road trip, and he said, let me give you the name of a place that is really cool that you'll want to check out. And he had said he had avoided posting this place on any of his normal social media platforms or websites because it is such a neat place and he didn't want to give it away. And so I'm going to respect that and not tell you exactly where we are, other than we are in Saskatchewan. I always enjoy exploring ghost towns and seeing the old sidewalks. These early concrete sidewalks are often some of the last things that are left of the towns. And along here, I don't think there's any concrete underneath all this matted and mowed down grass, but you can see where the sidewalk ran. And oh, okay, apparently there is still concrete underneath. But you can see how much these trees have overgrown since the town was abandoned. The sidewalk, you can't walk under there anymore. Yeah, actually, if you move some of this dead grass, there is still concrete on the sidewalks under here. It's just buried under a lot of dead grass and weeds. Often on the corners, with a little luck, if you can get down to concrete and expose it, you sometimes can actually find date stamps in the concrete. I don't really feel like excavating all of this, but it was worth a shot to see if there's anything stamped in there that would give us an indication of when these were poured. But of course, ghost town that's nothing but sidewalks wouldn't be all that interesting. So this town has got more than that. Check out the multicolored roof on this curling rink. That is, I've seen plenty of these old buildings that have been retrofitted with metal roofs, but never one done in such vibrant colors. More overgrown sidewalk here in front of the curling rink. I'd really love to be able to see a date on here. This is a old RM office for those not from Saskatchewan. RM meaning rural municipality, the equivalent of what in many places would be a county, or in Alberta, a municipal district. There's a lot of flies. Oh, there's something blocking the door, so I'll just stick the camera in. Looks like this building has been pretty trashed inside. Not much to see, and it smells really bad. I never will understand why people get pleasure from destroying these buildings and smashing the glass and things out of them. Like, there's just no need for that. It's a real shame. these buildings could be in a lot better condition if people would just leave them alone. And you can barely see it behind all these caragana bushes, but there is an abandoned house back in there. It's funny, the homeowner obviously long ago planted this hedge alongside the sidewalk and probably spent years maintaining it and had no idea that one day that hedge would completely overgrow and obliterate the entire sidewalk. So at one time, this would have been all houses along this stretch of road. And now it's nothing really more than a sidewalk, an abandoned house, the curling rink, and this old foundation here. And as we often see, these old foundations just become convenient dumping places for trash. This one here, they've also been pushing in when they mow the area, just pushing the grass and weeds in for composting purposes. And in a twist of irony, dumping of industrial and household garbage is prohibited. Keep that in mind. Give you another view of that house that we couldn't really see behind the caragana bushes, and you can see there's some concrete here as well. Maybe it was part of a wall or a fence at one time for whatever house stood here. And this here is a capped off well or cistern, the bane of, or it could be a septic tank as well. Either way, it's the bane of the existence of rural explorers, because those things can be absolutely deadly if they're not visible and you happen to fall into one. So we're going to take a walk out here to the town cemetery. You can see somebody has been mowing the grass. Probably the RM does some maintenance out here. So we could have driven out here, but you know, we've been in the car a lot on this trip, so the walk isn't going to hurt us. And B, things are pretty dry, and anytime you drive on grass like this, you run the risk of starting a fire thanks to the hot exhaust on your car. And out here with the wind and these dry conditions, starting a fire, it would burn for a long, long time. So it's just not worth it. We kept the car parked back on the gravel in town. It is incredible how there are very few clouds in the sky and the sun is just beating down on here. I mean, they call Saskatchewan the land of the living skies. Well, right now it feels like endless sky and endless sun, and we're really baking in the sun right now. I'm hoping someone can fill me in here. This type of cemetery with the raised graves and the iron crosses, that's a very specific religion or nationality that does this sort of burial. If you can fill me in on some details, I'd love to know, because I'm really not very familiar with it. But we do see it a fair amount out here. That one there is very cracked. It's just the cap though. That's good. You're not seeing anything else under there. 1968, 1947. Harold German there was only 9 years old, 1930 to 1939. Yeah, Many of these graves are in quite poor condition. It's amazing what the blazing hot Saskatchewan summers followed by freezing cold Saskatchewan winters will do to things like concrete. And you can see how much like that one has sunken into the ground. It's quite amazing. These two burials here date from 2008 and 2010. This one here is 2017, so they do still see the occasional new burial out here by the looks of it. So we were just commenting how this ghost town has a very calming and peaceful feel to it. And that's not always the case. Sometimes these towns, for lack of a better term, just feel creepy. And I'm not talking creepy in a supernatural, haunted kind of way. Some of them just give off a really bad vibe or an uncomfortable vibe. Sometimes it's when they're completely deserted. Sometimes it's when they're mostly deserted, but there's like 4 or half a dozen residents left. I haven't never been able to pinpoint the criteria that say this place is going to feel odd, this place is going to feel really peaceful and relaxing. It's just something that happens.
Well, my thought is you can't tell until you get there. It's something that you just feel. You pick up the vibe and the energy of the place, and maybe it has to do with the circumstance of the people leaving. Did they lose all their money and were forced to leave, or did they live out their years and die peacefully in their own home? It's just, every place is different, but yeah, this place is peaceful. I like it.
So again, a huge thanks to our friend Johnny for letting us in on this little secret, and I hope I've done you well by not revealing the name. I hope that's okay, but it's just such a great town. I had to show it while still trying to protect it as best we can. I guess if he never complains, we'll just either pretend it was okay or he never actually watches our videos. There we go. After a stop in Kindersley for some lunch, we have worked our way back into Alberta, and this is Compeer, Alberta, and we're here to take a look at this church. So there's a couple of things that make this one super unique, and that of course is the round shingles on the front edges of the roof. That is something you don't see very often. And the bell tower actually has glass in it. Usually they're either open or they're louvered, but something that has glass is completely unique. And we were just talking to one of the locals here who was saying that these windows in the front, last year they would have all been still intact, but it was actually a hailstorm that went through here and caused a bunch of damage to the church. Undoubtedly a lot of the paint damage as well is from that, because you can see on the side the paint is not nearly as bad. Okay, well, we think this is going to be our last stop of the trip. It's getting late in the afternoon and we still have to get home. It's about 4 hours to get home from here. We are in Monitor, Alberta. So checking out the St. Lawrence Anglican Church right now. Previously here, we stopped in and looked at the Monitor Post Office. This here is a registered historic site, and I do believe, according to the sign, we are allowed to go inside, so let's do that. Door is a little stiff, but it's open. And it's very interesting how every one of these historic churches has the same kind of smell. Wow. Now there is a geocache inside the church, and the description for the cache did say the stained glass window itself is worth the price of admission, and wow, is it ever. That is one of the nicest stained glass windows I've seen in a prairie church. So now we just have to see if we can find the geocache. There's a hint that says find the college. And of course there's a guest book we have to sign too. And spoiler alert, I think I found it. This book says college on it. And if I look, there it is. That's the cache. Wow, that's a good one. Time for me to head outside so I can take over Mabel and Emily can come in and check this out. That's been a great tour. I think we've gone just over 1,000 kilometers so far. And back into the sunlight. Get a good look at the outside here. Here's a look at the back of that stained glass window we saw from inside. Much more impressive from the inside. Well, this has been a lot of fun. This is the first trip and the first videos I have done with the new camera. The DJI Osmo Mobile 2 that I used to use with my cell phone finally died. Rather than repairing or replacing it directly, I decided to go to a DJI Pocket 2, and I really like it. It's much smaller than the Osmo Mobile, and it's not as obtrusive. I'm not carrying my cell phone around in front of me. I've got this nice little camera in front. Makes it a little more quiet or unobtrusive for recording video in places where there's people around. This has been so much fun. We've got to get back on the road, and I really hope you enjoyed coming along with us the last 2 days. Thank you very much.